Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at the Nintendo DS and continuing our road of terrible video games. We all know the DS had some absolute corkers, but there was some absolute garbage as well. So I'm giving you a list of games which I think absolutely stink. If you think there are more titles that I've forgotten, please put them in this list and we can always keep going down this rabbit hole. If you think I deserve it, please hit that like button as well as the subscribe button and the notification bell to be told when new videos are coming out. We've also got the weekly podcast and you can join our Discord and the link is in the description below and I'd love to see you in the group. Now let's get into it, shall we? More terrible DS games. Elf Bowling. This could be considered the king of the bargain bin nightmare. Originally a free viral flash-style PC game from the late 90s, some developers decided to package it as a full-price retail release for the DS. It's widely considered one of the worst games ever released on Nintendo handheld, and a masterpiece of laziness that feels more like a scam than a product. You play as a disgruntled Santa Claus who decides to use his elves as bowling pins. In the first game, it's standard bowling. In the second, it's a shuffle ball style game on a cruise ship. The game relies entirely on the edgy 90s humour. The elves moon Santa, make crude noises, and scream in high-pitched voices when they get hit. You can use the D-pad and buttons to aim and set the power of your throw. Despite the DS having a touchscreen though, this game barely uses it for anything meaningful. Elf Bowling on the DS isn't just a bad game, it's a technical and ethical disaster. And here's why it holds that special place in the Hall of Shame. The biggest insult was the price tag. The original Elf Bowling was a tiny 1MB file that people used to email to each other for a joke back in 1998. Asking people to pay $20 to $30 for a handheld port of a 7-year-old joke file was an absolute farce move made by the publisher Ignition Entertainment. You would also expect the DS port to at least look good as the PC version. Instead, the graphics were heavily compressed, pixelated and muddy. The frame rate is inexplicably choppy for a game that is essentially a static background with two moving sprites. It looks like a low-budget Game Boy Color game accidentally put in the DS cartridge. There are literally two screens in the entire game. You've got the bowling lane and the shuffleboard deck. There are no extra modes, no career path, no character unlocks and no variety. You can see everything this game has to offer in approximately 120 seconds. There's also the atrocious audio loops. The comedy voices and sound effects are on a very short loop, and the elves have about 3 lines of dialogue they repeat every single time you bowl. Within 5 minutes, that high-pitched scream and crude jokes become genuine psychological torture. For a sports game, the physics are completely random. The pins don't react realistically to the ball, they just disappear or fall over into preset animations. There's no skill involved in picking up a spare because the ball to pin interaction feels like a coin toss. And despite the DS being famous for its download, play and wireless features, Elf Bowling had no wireless multiplayer. If you wanted to play with a friend, you physically had to pass the DS back and forth. It was a lazy port that ignored every unique feature of the hardware, although the question should be, why are there 2 copies of this game being purchased? Elf Bowling is a text example of shovelware. It was a cynical attempt to grab cash from unsuspecting parents and kids who recognise the brand from the internet, the elves. It's a game with zero effort, zero polish, and zero reason to exist on a retail shelf. Pass the Pigs. Pass the Pigs on the Nintendo DS could have been a text message sort of game, based on the 1997 tabletop game where you roll 2 miniature rubber pigs and score points based on how they land. The DS version tried to run a 5-minute bar game into a full gaming experience. It's a baffling product that highlights the trend of turning literally anything into a video game, regardless of whether it actually worked. Okay, so bear with me here. The setup is, you roll 2 pigs, and depending on how they land, you get points. If the pigs touch, you pig out and lose points for that round. Now to justify the price, the developers added a campaign mode, where you have to travel to various locations, like a farm, a forest, or a city, to challenge pig passers. Jesus. It includes a few tangible modes, like Pig Race and Porker, but they're essentially just the same rolling mechanic with a different UI. While the physical game board is fun, portable version, not so much. The physical version of Pass the Pigs costs about $10 and fits in your pocket. It's a tactical funny and perfect for a pub or a car ride. The DS version costs, well, could be $20 to $30 at launch and required you to stare at a tiny screen. It stripped away the only thing that makes the game fun, the physical sensation of tossing rubber pigs onto a table, and if I hadn't worded that correctly, I could possibly get in trouble with YouTube. The game requires you to flick the stylus on the touchscreen to throw the pigs, and the physics engine is incredibly inconsistent. Sometimes a tiny flick sends the pigs flying at Mach 10, and sometimes a violent swipe barely moves them. It makes a game with pure luck feel like a game of broken mechanics. Now by 2009, the DS was capable of some pretty impressive 3D graphics, but Pass the Pigs looks like it was made in a weekend. The 3D pig models are basic, the environments are static and ugly, and the human characters you play against look like terrifying low-budget wooden puppets. In the physical game, the fun comes from the social interaction the gambler's high of pursuing your luck. Playing against a computer AI that has no personality and responds with the same 3 text bosses makes the luck element feel hollow. There's no strategy to learn, you're just clicking a screen and watching your numbers go up. The World Tour mode is an absolute slog. You have to win dozens of matches against AI opponents to unlock more ugly locations for the pigs to roll in. There are no real rewards, no upgrades, and no reason to keep playing after the first 5 minutes. Pass the Pigs on the DS is the ultimate gift from a relative who doesn't know video games. It's a soulless, poorly programmed digital version of a game that was already perfect in its physical form. It's a literal definition of shovelware, a game that exists only to fill shelf space. Alex Rider Stormbreaker. Released to coincide with a film based on Anthony Horowitz's popular book series, the game had a monumental task of making you feel like a teenage James Bond. Instead, it feels like a collection of unfinished ideas held together by some of the most frustrating design choices in the DS library. You play as Alex Rider, a teenager recruited by MI6 after his uncle is murdered. You follow the plot of the movie, moving through stealth sections, combat and vehicle chases to stop the Stormbreaker supercomputers. The game tries to be everything at once, throwing together so many different genres. It's a top-down stealth game, a 2D brawler, a racing game, and a puzzle game. And just like the books, you have access to specialised gear to help you hack computers and bypass security. Now, Stormbreaker is a masterclass in how to make a player feel like a clumsy amateur rather than a world-class spy. The core of the game is stealth, but the mechanics are fundamentally broken. The vision cones for enemies are invisible, and the patrol patterns are erratic. You'll often get spotted by an enemy who isn't even looking at you, or through a solid wall. Because getting caught usually results in instant game over, the game becomes a miserable cycle of trial and error. When Alex is forced to fight, the game turns into a clunky 2D brawler. The animations are stiff, and the hit detection is so poor that you'll often find yourself punching the air while an enemy kicks you from 3 feet away, like with magic air. There's no flow to the combat, it's just a desperate mash of buttons until someone falls over. The game heavily relies on context-sensitive actions. To climb a ladder or open a door, you have to stand on a very specific invisible pixel and wait for the icon to appear. If you are off by a slight millimeter, Alex will just stand like a statue while guards close in, and it makes the action feel like you're navigating a spreadsheet. To unlock gadgets or hack systems, you have to complete touchscreen minigames. These are often poorly explained and physically frustrating. One involves tracing a line with a stylus, where the game sensitivity is so high that even a slight tiny hand tremor causes a failure, forcing you to restart the entire stealth section, which is an absolute farce. The DS by this point was capable of vibrant worlds, but Stormbreaker is an eyesore. Most levels are various shades of brown and grey, the character sprites are tiny and lack any personality, making it hard to feel any connection to the hero of the books. It feels like a late era Game Boy Advance game that was upscaled poorly. The game is also notoriously stingy with checkpoints. If you fail a difficult minigame or get spotted by a glitchy guard at the end of the level, the game often sends you back to the beginning of the entire mission. For a handheld game that's meant for short bursts of play, this is an unforgivable sin. Alex Rider Stormbreaker is a spy thriller that lacks any thrills. It takes a high-octane premise and turns it into a slow, glitchy and visually dull experience. It's a classic example of rushed movie license where the goal was to get the box on the shelves before the film even left cinemas, and the actual gameplay was an afterthought. Garfield gets real. And I love Garfield, it's part of my childhood, and I imagine for some of you as well. And this was based on the direct-to-video CGI movie of the same name. The game is a platformer that manages to be more lethargic than the cat it's based on. Garfield escaped the comic strip world and entered the real world. You have to navigate various sets to find props and help film the movie. It's a 2.5D side-scrolling platformer. Garfield can jump, crawl, and use a spin attack. As part of the game, you've got to manage Garfield's hunger and fatigue. If you run out of energy, which is probably quite common, Garfield stops to nap. If you run out of food, he becomes too weak to progress. The game is a special kind of boring that actually becomes impressive in its commitment to being mediocre. Garfield is not a fast character, but this game takes it to an extreme. His movement speed is antagonizingly slow, walking from the left side of the screen to the right feels like a lifetime commitment. There's no run button that actually makes a difference, turning the entire game into a test of patience. The platforming is fundamentally broken. Garfield's feet don't actually seem to touch the ground, he sort of hovers over it. You'll frequently fall through the edge of a platform even though your sprite is clearly standing on it. In a game where the only thing is to do is jump, having broken jumping is absolutely shit. The level design is also based on backtracking. You'll walk for 5 minutes to find a key, usually a bone for Odie or a prop, only to have to walk back those same 5 minutes back to start the level. And because the movement is so slow, this isn't gameplay, it's a chore. The game uses pre-rendered 3D sprites based on the CGI movie. On the DS's small screen, these look grainy, blurry and unsettling. Garfield's real-world design is already a bit uncanny, and in 24-bit color on the DS, it looks like a fever dream. Garfield has a spin attack that has absolutely no range. You have to be pixel perfect to hit a dog or an obstacle, and if you miss, you take damage and get knocked back, usually into a pit, forcing you to restart the slow walk all over again. Garfield Gets Real is a game that captures the spirit of Garfield perfectly, not because it's funny, but because it's lazy, unmotivated, and wants to be over as soon as possible. It's a nothing game. It exists, but provides no joy, no challenge, and no entertainment. Ping Pals. Yeah, I know what some of you are thinking. This isn't even a game. Ping Pals is a legendary piece of software because it tried to sell you something the DS already did for free right out of the box. It's a wireless chat application. You can create a custom avatar and join chat rooms with the 15 other friends who also have the cartridge. Now, that is asking quite a lot. As you chat, you earn ping points, and you can use these points to buy new clothes, accessories, and items for your avatar to make them look cooler. There are very few basic games like Doodle and Solo Chat where you talk to an AI bot, although to be fair, don't people do that with ChatGPT? Ping Pals is famous for being a scam in the eyes of early DS adopters, and this is because the Nintendo DS came with a built-in application called PictoChat. It was free, and it was installed on every system and allowed you to draw and text with friends wirelessly. Ping Pals asked you to pay $30 for a version of PictoChat that actually had fewer drawing features and required everyone to own the cartridge. Like, if you didn't have 15 friends with a copy of Ping Pals, which nobody did anyone have it? The game was a ghost town. To earn points, you had to talk to the chat bot. The bot was incredibly primitive. It would repeat the same 3 phrases and fail to understand basic sentences. It felt like talking to a brick wall that occasionally gave you a digital hat. The big hook here, though, was customizing your avatar, but the art style was generic 2000s flash animation. Even with hundreds of items, every avatar looked roughly the same. And because there was no world to walk in, your avatar just stood there in a static box while you typed. Parents who would have bought this game for their kids at launch often saw Ping Pals on the shelf and thought it was a social game like Animal Crossing. Finding out they spent $30 in a chat room that the console already had for free led to a lot of immediate returns and disappointed kids. Ping Pals is a fascinating study in corporate cynicism. It was a solution to a problem that didn't exist, sold at full price to people who didn't know any better. It's remembered today as the absolute bottom of the barrel for the Nintendo DS launch lineup. Whiffle Ball. Whiffle Ball is a backyard game, and basically they decided to put it on the DS, and they managed to take that specific tactile joy and turn it into a sterile, broken, and visually offensive experience. Now, this was a simulation of the classic backyard sport. You play in various locations like backyards and parks and choose between different teams of generic kids. You use the stylus to flick the ball for pitches or time your swings for hits. It includes various pitch types like the curveball, sinker, and riser, mimicking the real-life variety of wiffle ball throws. There's also quick play, tournament, and home run derby, although why would you even want to play that? Even though the graphics are incredibly simple, the game runs at a stuttering abysmal frame rate. When the ball is pitched, it doesn't fly towards the plate, it teleports in 3 or 4 jerky frames. In a game about timing your swing, a choppy frame rate makes the game literally broken. In real Whiffle Ball, the holes in the ball create crazy movements. In the DS game, the ball moves on a rigid preset invisible rails. There's no sense of wind, air resistance, or plastic feel. It feels like you're playing a game of baseball with a lead weight that occasionally zigs or zags because the code told it to. The character models in Whiffle Ball are disgraceful. The low polygon, blurry children with fixed unblinking expressions, which is quite creepy. Their animations are stiff and robotic, making every celebration of defeat animation look like a glitch in the Matrix. You can time a swing perfectly, see the bat physically pass through the ball, and the game will still call it a strike, which is absolute bullshit. Conversely, you can swing way too late and somehow launch a home run into the neighbour's yard. There's no consistency here, which removes any sense of reward for getting good at the game. The crack of a Whiffle Ball bat is a very specific hollow pop, and this game features generic tiny thuds that somehow sound like someone hitting a wet sponge with a ruler. The outfield themselves are controlled by the computer, and they are remarkably stupid. They'll often run the wrong direction, stand still while the ball rolls past them, or get stuck in the geometry of the backyard fence. It makes winning feel hollow because you aren't beating an opponent, you're just witnessing a software failure. Whiffle Ball on the DS is a tragedy of a licensed game. It took a sport that is defined by feel and physics and turned into a choppy, ugly, and unresponsive mess. It's the kind of game that makes you want to put down the DS and go outside to play the real thing, which is probably the only productive outcome of owning it. And finally, Peter Jackson's King Kong. Now, this is a fascinating case because the console versions, which is the PS2 and the Xbox 360, are actually really good game and some of the best movie licensed games ever made. But the DS version? It's a legendary technical disaster that feels like it was programmed in a dark room with half the necessary assets. Now, like the other games, you follow the movie's plot, alternating between the first-person perspective of scriptwriter Jack Driscoll and the third-person perspective of Kong, smashing up T-Rexes. Like the console version, it has no HUD design. You don't have a health bar and ammo counter on the screen. You have to listen to Jack count his magazines or watch the screen turn red to know you're dying. It promised the full Skull Island experience in the palm of your hand, featuring the voices and likeness of most of the movie cast. But the DS struggled so much to render the 3D jungle that the developers covered everything in that thick, murky grey fog, and you can rarely see more than 10 feet in front of you. This makes the game about being hunted by giant predators in the jungle make it feel like you're actually going through a blizzard. Jack moves at a glacial pace. In a game where you're supposed to be being chased by agile raptors, your character walks the urgency of someone window shopping. To make matters worse, the game often suffers from selective slowdown. When an enemy appears, the frame rate drops so low it feels like you're playing a slideshow. The collision detection is barely functional either. It's incredibly common to be walking through a dark temple and simply fall through the floor into a backpolitical void, resulting in instant death. You're not just fighting the dinosaurs here, you're fighting the very geometry of the world itself. Now in the console versions, playing as Kong is a visual power trip. On the DS version, Kong's levels are short, automated and boring. Most of his platforming is scripted, you just press a button near a ledge and he performs a canned animation. The combat with the dinosaurs is a clunky button mashing mess where the camera often loses track of the building-sized gorilla entirely. The hit detection is also famously broken. You can fire a shotgun at a giant crab from point blank range and watch the bullet pass right through its body without doing any damage at all. Conversely, an enemy can sometimes hit you from across the room for a solid stone wall. Peter Jackson's King Kong on the DS is an ultimate cautionary tale of scope creep. They tried to port a high-end cinematic Xbox 360 launch title to a handheld that wasn't ready for it. The result is a murky, buggy and frustrating mess that lasts about 2 hours and you wish it was shorter. And that's it! 7 more terrible DS games. Are the ones I've not talked about? Let me know in the comments below. And I'll see you all again in a few days from the video. Mine has been Danny, take care, bye bye.